One plant in a pot can light an LED without batteries or solar panels. You won't believe it, but electricity comes straight from the roots through ordinary dirt. Scientists proved this in 2008, but no one knows about it. A Dutch company lit 300 street lamps using plants alone. Every flower in your home is already producing electricity in the soil. Bacteria in the soil eat sugar from the roots and release electrons as waste. You only need 2 pieces of carbon fabric and wire to assemble them. Installation takes 5 minutes and works for years without maintenance. After 3 weeks, the tiny LED begins to glow from the living plant. Now, I will show you how to turn any pot into a living battery. 1 pot, 1 flower, and 2 pieces of carbon fabric in wet soil. That's all it takes. After 2 to 3 weeks, the small LED begins to glow. Not from a battery, not from a solar panel, not from a wall outlet. The light comes from the dirt, from a living plant which does what living plants have always done. The light bulb lights up at night and stays on when the clouds cover the sun for several days. It burns because electricity does not come from the sky. It comes from the roots. Researchers at one of the most respected agricultural universities on Earth have proven that it works. A Dutch company has used this technology to light more than 300 streetlights. The only reason you haven't been collecting voltage from your houseplants all this time is because no one explained the connection to you until today. By the end of this video, I'll show you the exact 5-minute setup that turns any pot into a living battery. But first, you must understand what went on underneath every plant you've ever owned. If you've ever looked at a houseplant sitting quietly on a windowsill and thought it was doing nothing but turning green, you're about to learn something amazing. This discovery will change the way you think about biology, energy, and what's really possible with a bucket of dirt. Right now, as you listen to this, there is a process going on in the soil of every potted plant on Earth. The process is so fundamental to life that it has been running continuously for hundreds of millions of years. Hidden within this process is the flow of pure electricity that we have walked on, gardened in, and completely ignored throughout human civilization. Just imagine, your houseplants could be secretly producing electricity right now. The first scientist to prove that living organisms produce electricity was a professor at the University of Durham in England named Michael Crest Potter. In 1911, more than a century ago, he published work demonstrating measurable electrical current from microbes. It was largely ignored by the scientific community, but the technology for capturing energy from living plants was first demonstrated in 2008. This has been confirmed by peer-reviewed studies published in journals that the global scientific community takes very seriously. The technology requires no fuel, no moving parts, and no maintenance other than watering the plant. The plant does all the work. You just need to know where to put the wires. Here's what's really going on beneath the surface of every pot of soil you own. It's a lot weirder than you might expect. We are taught in school that photosynthesis is elegant and efficient. Sunlight hits the leaf, the plant takes carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil. Using the energy of the sun, it turns these simple ingredients into glucose, sugar, the fuel of life. Clean, simple, beautiful. But this version of history misses something huge. Plants are wildly overproductive. They produce far more sugar than they can use to grow themselves, and they do not store the excess. They pump it out through the roots directly into the surrounding soil. Research published at dozens of universities around the world has established a startling fact. Plants release between 5 and 21% of all the carbon they fix through photosynthesis directly through their root systems. Some studies measuring specific species in certain conditions have documented losses of up to 40%. Think about it. Up to 1/5 of everything a plant builds from sunlight is deliberately pushed into the dirt. This is not a design defect or waste. This is a strategy that has been refined by the evolution of 400 million years of land-plant history. This is how this strategy works, and this is where things get unusual. Sugars that leak from the roots attract bacteria. Not a few bacteria, but billions of them per gram of soil. They swarm in the root zone, an area scientists call the rhizosphere, and feast on the sugars the plant offers. In exchange for food, the bacteria break down minerals locked inside soil particles and convert them into forms that the plant can absorb. Nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, zinc, manganese, nutrients that the plant desperately needs but cannot extract on its own, are suddenly delivered on a silver platter by microbes who are paid in sugar. It is a biological market, a symbiotic economy, and it has been working under every meadow, every forest, every wheat field, and every garden bed on this planet, longer than any human structure has existed. But here's the part that's important to what we're building today. This is a detail that the energy world has been surprisingly slow to acknowledge. When these bacteria digest plant sugars, the chemical reaction produces more than just nutrients for the plant. It releases protons and electrons, free electrons, pure electrical charge. In normal soil, these electrons are immediately captured by oxygen molecules or other chemical compounds lurking nearby. The energy is dissipated as low-grade heat into the surrounding earth and disappears forever. Every potted plant you've ever had has flowed electricity into its soil its entire life. Every lawn on your street is doing the same thing right now. The leak is real, continuous, and global. In 2008, a team of environmental engineers at Wageningen University in the Netherlands figured out how to intercept it. The technology is called plant microbial fuel cell. The name sounds complicated, but the principle borders on elegance. You create two separate zones inside the container with moist soil, an oxygen-free zone at the bottom and an oxygen-rich zone at the top. You bury a piece of electrically conductive carbon material in the lower zone. This is your anode, your negative electrode. The bacteria living down there eat the sugars that plant roots continually pump into the soil. Normally, these bacteria would transfer their spent electrons to oxygen, and the energy would disappear as heat. But you removed oxygen from the area by compacting the wet soil tightly. The bacteria are stuck with a full load of electrons, and nowhere to dump them. They are looking for the next best conductive surface. They find your carbon electrode. This is where it crosses the line from interesting chemistry to something that will make you want to share this video with someone else. Bacteria don't just sit next to the electrode and hope for the best. They are physically connected to it by wires. A species called Geobacter sulfuriducens, which is naturally present in most soils on Earth, produces protein filaments. These structures are called electrically conductive pili or e-pili. These are nanowires. Real nano-sized electrical wires grow directly from the bacteria's body, extend outward, and physically attach to the carbon surface of your electrode. Scientists at the University of Massachusetts first described these structures in 2005 in the journal Nature, one of the most prestigious scientific publications in the world. Since then, scanning tunneling microscopy has confirmed this amazing fact. These bacterial nanowires conduct electrons with a linear ohmic response. This means that they behave like real metal wire. A bacterium smaller than a human blood cell grows conductive cables from its own body. It connects to your electrode as if it were plugged into an outlet. Once connected, the bacteria multiply, attract neighbors, and form a dense living coating on the carbon fibers. This coating is called biofilm, and it is the engine of the entire system. Thousands of bacteria, each connected by wires, each dumping electrons at the anode, each converting plant sugars into electrical current. Electrons accumulate on the carbon felt and want to get to the oxygen at the surface, but the soil blocks them. The only way to escape is the wire you connected to the anode. They rush up the wire through whatever little device you've connected and arrive at the cathode, the second electrode sitting near the surface of the soil. There, they finally meet oxygen, combine with protons from the soil water and form a pure water molecule. This is the whole cycle. Sunlight hits the leaf. The leaf produces sugar. The roots push the sugar into the soil. Bacteria eat the sugar. Electrons flow through your wire. Water forms at the top. No combustion, no degradation, no pollution, no fuel consumed. The plant continues to grow, the bacteria continues to multiply, the sun continues to shine. It's not a battery that runs out. It is a living metabolic engine that maintains itself while the plant is alive. One pot produces approximately 3/10 to 7/10 of a volt. I will be straightforward with you because I think you deserve honesty. It will not power your refrigerator. One pot won't charge your phone. Anyone who claims otherwise is exaggerating the current state of technology. But one pot will register a measurable voltage on the multimeter. A single pot connected to a low-power LED will produce a faint but continuous glow from a living plant in moist soil. No batteries, no charging, no expiration date. What one pot does alone, many pots do together. This is a principle that Dutch engineers proved when they went big. In November 2014, the Plantai company launched a project they called Starry Sky. Plantai was a direct offshoot of Wageningen University research, co-founded by Marjolein Helder, who developed the technology during her doctoral work, and David Strick, the researcher who first proposed combining plants with microbial fuel cells. For the Starry Sky project, they installed modular plant containers in an old military ammunition depot near Amsterdam called Hembrog. Each module contained native aquatic plants growing in soil with carbon electrodes underneath. They connected the modules in series and parallel and laid the wires. On a November evening, as the crowd stood in the park and looked up, more than 300 LED lights came on. The food came entirely from living plants and bacteria feeding on their roots. Not a single solar panel, not a single wind turbine, not a single connection to the electrical grid. The grass was already there. The soil was already there. The bacteria were already there. Plant. I simply buried the net and collected what nature gave away for free. The second installation went into operation near Wageningen, where they demonstrated mobile phone chargers powered by plant energy. Planta has been named a technology pioneer by the World Economic Forum. A designer named Van den Ars went even further. She created a consumer product called Living Light, a table lamp powered entirely by a single potted plant. No cable, no battery, no outlet. Spathiphyllum in a blown glass container with a carbon electrode buried under its roots. You touch the sheet, the sensor detects it, and the lamp lights up. Electricity comes from the plant's own metabolism. She presented this at the TEDx conference in Amsterdam. The room went dark, and the plant began to glow. She then teamed up with the city of Rotterdam to create a 35-meter trail through a public park. Each lamp was powered by the vegetation next to it. A walking trail in a European city illuminated by biology. No power lines, no trenches, no electrical infrastructure. Only dirt, roots, bacteria, and carbon mesh. If this image doesn't make you stop and reconsider what a plant actually is, I don't know what will. Now, here's where the numbers start to reshape your view of the Earth. Modern plant microbial fuel cells generate 0.4 of a watt per square meter of a plant growth area. This sounds almost negligibly small. But the Wageningen research team calculated a theoretical maximum output of 3.2 watts per square meter. At this density, a 100 square meter green roof could generate 28 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. Enough electricity to power the average household in the Netherlands. Imagine every flat roof in your city planted with sedges and grasses growing quietly in the rain. Beneath it, a carbon mesh silently collects the electrons that plants give away to Didar. No visual impact, no noise, no moving parts, no emissions. The building grows a rooftop garden on top and generates electricity from below. But scale it up even further. A doctoral dissertation completed in Wageningen in 2020 specifically examined plant microbial fuel cells embedded in rice fields. The rice fields are naturally flooded, and the soil at the bottom is already anaerobic. The conditions for a plant microbial fuel cell exist in every rice field on Earth without any modification. The study confirmed that rice-based fuel cells generate usable electricity as long as the rice crop continues to grow normally. A farmer harvests rice and electricity from the same field at the same time without reducing food yield. It is estimated that there are 160 million hectares of rice fields in the world. Even at today's modest power densities, littering a significant portion of this area with carbon mesh electrodes, represents a source of gigawatts of energy, and it doesn't require burning anything. So why have most people never heard of it? 3 reasons, and understanding them explains not only this technology, but also how promising ideas get stuck between the laboratory and your living room. The first reason is power density. 0.4 of a watt per square meter simply cannot compete with solar panels generating 150 to 200 watts per square meter in direct sun for grid power. The math doesn't add up yet. Engineers know this, researchers know this, the technology is not hidden, she is developing. The gap between the current output and the theoretical maximum is where the real work is happening in laboratories in the Netherlands, in field trials across Asia, and in a growing number of university programs around the world. The second reason is the economic structure. The global energy industry is built around centralized generation and distribution, power plants, transmission lines, substations, meters, monthly bills. Technology that generates tiny amounts of electricity at the point of use from plants that are already growing doesn't fit neatly into this model. Not because she threatens anyone, but because it is really difficult to build a business around a process that happens for free in the dirt. No fuel to sell, no consumables to replace. Bacteria does not require a subscription. They eat sugar and shed electrons regardless of who owns the patent. The third reason, and this is the most disappointing, is the material gap. The critical component, carbon felt, is an industrial material. It is not sold at your local hardware store or stocked in garden centers. If you walk into any home improvement store and say you want to build a plant battery, you will get a blank stare. The average person who hears about this technology and tries to replicate it with something lying around the house ends up building a crude chemical battery that corrodes, poisons the soil, and dies within days. They conclude that the whole concept is a hoax. The failure was not in the science, but in the materials. And because the right materials exist outside the normal consumer supply chain, most people never get a fair chance to see how it works. Luckily, these materials are just an online search away and they cost less than you'd spend on a bag of potting soil. So research continues in academia, demonstrations pile up, and the consumer market waits for someone to package it. You don't have to wait. Here's exactly how to do it. I want you to understand something before I begin. What I'm about to describe will sound too simple. You'll think I'm skipping steps. I don't miss it. The reason this works is because the bacteria already exist in your soil. The plant is already producing sugar. An electrochemical reaction is already happening in every pot you own. All you're doing is giving the electrons a path to follow and a reason to flow through your wire rather than disappear into the dirt. Here's what you need. A non-metal container. Any non-metal waterproof container that holds soil and stays moist. A plastic bucket or large plastic nursery works well. Avoid metal containers because they interfere with the electrochemistry. Drill or punch one small hole near the base for your wire to exit. Seal the hole with silicone or waterproof tape afterwards. Carbon felt is a lightweight, flexible fabric made from pure carbon fibers. It is electrically conductive, biologically inert, and non-corrosive. Its fibrous structure gives bacteria a huge surface area to colonize. One piece is your anode at the bottom. The other is your cathode at the top. You can find carbon felt at most major online retailers. A sheet large enough for this project costs between $8 and $15. Cut 2 pieces roughly the size of the bottom of your container. Wire. You need 2 lengths of wire that will not corrode in wet soil. Stainless steel wire is easy to find and works well. Titanium wire is ideal for maximum durability as it is completely inert, but stainless steel will last for years. Don't use copper. Copper corrodes in wet soil, releases toxic ions, and poisons both bacteria and the plant. This is the reason why most yard experiments fail. The wrong wire kills biology. Spathiphyllum. Choose a species that likes wet roots. Spathiphyllum is the best choice for home installation. It is widely available, tolerates low light, thrives in moist soil, and has an aggressive root system that quickly colonizes carbon felt. Cyperus alternate leaf is an excellent alternative. Don't try this with succulents or cacti. They don't pump out enough sugar to fuel the bacterial engine. Compost and soil. Potting soil mixed with a handful of mature compost. Compost introduces a variety of microbes that accelerate biofilm formation. Separator. A layer of fine sand or damp peat moss to provide separation between the anode zone and the cathode zone. Multimeter. A basic digital multimeter for monitoring your voltage, about $10. The LED is a low-power red LED. Here's a 5-minute setup. Lay your first piece of carbon felt flat on the bottom of the container. Weave your first wire through the felt so that it makes strong, distributed contact with the fibers. Pass the wire through the bottom hole. This is your anode. Fill the container about 1/3 full with moist soil mixed with compost. Pack it tightly and squeeze out any air pockets. This layer should become oxygen-free. The wetter and denser you pack it, the faster the microbes will absorb the remaining oxygen and create the anaerobic conditions the system needs. Add about an inch of damp sand or peat moss on top. This is your separator. It slows down the diffusion of oxygen down to the anode. Place your second piece of carbon felt on top of the sand. Weave your second wire through it, leading that wire up and out of the container. This is your cathode. Fill the remaining space with the soil and plant your spathiphyllum or cyperus directly into the top layer. Water generously until the surface is shiny. This system must remain constantly moist, not soggy. Wet. Water is about more than just keeping a plant alive. This is the ionic transport medium between the anode and cathode. Without water, the electrochemical circuit breaks down. If you go on vacation for a week and the soil dries out, the voltage will drop to almost zero. But here's the beautiful thing about a living system. Water it again. Let the soil resaturate. Within a day or two, the bacteria resume work and tension is restored. The biofilm does not die from temporary drought. It goes into a dormant state and waits. When the water returns, she wakes up and gets back to work. Another practical note, if your voltage levels out lower than you expected, the most common solution is to add a thin layer of fresh compost on top and water it over. This gives a new impulse to microbial activity in the anode zone. Think of it as refueling your engine. Carbon felt lasts almost forever. The wires do not degrade. The only thing the system ever needs more is organic matter for the bacteria to eat. A healthy plant provides most of this itself through its roots. Now comes the hard part, the waiting. And I mean that sincerely. The waiting will test you. On the first day, your multimeter will read close to zero, maybe 0.02 of a volt. Maybe nothing. Don't touch anything, don't overwater, don't add anything to the soil. The system is not broken. The bacteria just haven't found the carbon felt yet. They are there, in the compost you added in the soil itself, but they have not colonized the electrode. They didn't grow their nanowires, the engine didn't start. Be patient. Keep the soil moist. This is your only job in the first week. By the end of the first week, the readings creep up. 0.05 of a volt, then 1/10. Something is happening down there in the dark. Bacteria attach to the carbon fibers and they extend their conductive pili. Biofilm begins. In the second week, something changes. You check the multimeter and the number jumps. 0.2 of a volt, then 0.3. The anode zone has become completely anaerobic. The bacterial colony has established itself, become dense, and is actively dumping electrons onto the carbon felt, having no place else to send them. By the third or fourth week, most home installations will stabilize somewhere between 0.3 and 0.7 of a volt. The reading remains stable, barely fluctuating because the system has reached a living equilibrium. The plant pumps out sugar, bacteria eat the sugar and release electrons. Electrons flow through your wire day or night, rain or shine, summer or winter, as long as the plant is alive and the soil is moist. It's not a battery that runs out, it's a metabolic cycle that maintains itself. Connect your LED to 2 wires and watch it glow. One pot will make him weak, that's fair. But let me tell you what it's like the first time you see him. You have a pot of dirt, a plant you bought for $8, 2 pieces of carbon fabric, and 2 wires. There is no battery anywhere, no plug, no chemical reaction consuming itself. A tiny red light glows in the dark, powered only by the relationship between the plant and the invisible organisms living in its soil. Something about this moment is difficult to put into words. It's not a matter of brightness, it's a matter of principle. You're watching biology generate electricity in real time. You are observing a process that has been at work on this planet since before the dinosaurs. You just gave him a lead and a reason to show himself. Now, to get brighter light or to power something more substantial, you stack. Connect two pots in series, the positive terminal of one to the negative terminal of the next, and your voltage doubles. 3 pots triple. 10 pots connected in series will give you 3 to 7 volts. This easily powers a bright LED array. This runs a low-power soil moisture sensor for your garden indefinitely. This powers a low-power microcontroller or small digital thermometer. Picture it in your mind. A shelf by your window with 5 lilies. Each sits in its own bucket, each connected by wires to the next. The plants are green and healthy and do what houseplants do. But underneath them, invisible, a chain of living batteries operates. The combined voltage powers a strip of warm LED lights along the shelf. No plug, no cord running to the wall, no battery to replace. The lamps glow because the plants are alive. If a visitor asks where the lamps are plugged in, you'll tell them they're plugged into the dirt and look at their face. This is the kind of moment that this technology creates. Scale it up. A classroom with 15 potted plants along the windowsill, connected together, feeding a small weather station display showing temperature and humidity. Children don't just water plants, they support the energy grid. They watch the voltage on the multimeter. They learn that electricity doesn't just come from outlets and batteries. It comes from the metabolic labor of organisms too small to see. This lesson doesn't exist in any textbook I've read, but it does exist in a bucket of dirt on the classroom shelf. The principle that lit 300 street lamps in Amsterdam scales down to your windowsill and up to a rice field in Indonesia. The physics is identical at every level. Now sit with this for a moment. There are an estimated 1.5 billion households on this planet. Hundreds of millions of them have at least one potted plant inside. Each single one of these plants had been leaking electricity into its pot its entire life. And not a single person in that household knew it was happening. Every garden bed you've ever worked has released tension into the soil beneath your knees. Every wetland, every swamp, every forest floor on Earth is driven by a continuous electrochemical reaction, fueled by sunlight maintained by bacteria, and fueled by the oldest energy capture system in biology. We paved it, mowed it, composted it. We never thought to stick a wire into the dirt and listen to what the soil was trying to tell us. That's what makes it fundamentally different from any other energy technology that exists. Solar panels degrade within 20 to 30 years. Wind turbines require constant maintenance. Lithium batteries lose capacity with each charge cycle and leave behind toxic mining waste when they die. A plant microbial fuel cell does none of this. Carbon felt does not corrode. Bacteria reproduce themselves indefinitely. The plant grows, flowers, and can be replanted when it outgrows its home. The whole system is alive. When something living weakens, it is restored. When the fuel cell loses performance, you add fresh compost and the bacterial colony is restored. When a plant reaches the end of its natural life, you plant a new one and the cycle restarts. There is no waste stream. The only chemical byproduct is water. While the system is running, the plant actively pulls carbon dioxide from the air to build sugars that feed bacteria that generate electricity. This technology is not carbon neutral. It is carbon negative. It purifies the atmosphere by producing energy. I want to leave you with one final image. There are an estimated 390 billion trees on Earth. More than 300,000 species of flowering plants. Each single one pushes sugars through its roots into the soil. Each single one feeds communities of bacteria that release electrons as metabolic waste. The total electrochemical energy flowing through the soils of this planet every day is a number almost too large to comprehend. We're sitting on a living battery the size of a continent, and we've been too busy building coal-fired power plants to notice. We tap into a tiny fraction of this energy with a piece of carbon fabric and 2 wires and get a glowing light from a pot of dirt. This alone should change your perception of what is under your feet. But the researchers in Wageningen weren't finished. Their most recent published work confirms that nanomaterial-enhanced electrodes and optimized microbial communities are pushing power densities higher with each passing year. New electrode designs using activated carbon granules and graphene composites are showing efficiency gains that were not possible 5 years ago. The theoretical ceiling of this technology has not been reached. The researchers who built it think it may not even be close. You don't have to wait for that ceiling. You can build the current version today. 1 pot, 1 plant, 2 pieces of carbon felt, 2 wires, 5 minutes of installation. Bacteria that have been sitting in your garden soil for millions of years are waiting for someone to give them a job. The materials cost less than dinner for 2. The system works for years and asks you for nothing but water and a sunny window. When someone visits your house and notices that faint red light in the corner and asks what it is, you tell them it's an LED powered by a potted plant and the bacteria living in its soil. They won't believe you. They will come up, look for a hidden battery, and check the cord behind the shelf. When they find nothing, when they realize that the light is coming from dirt and roots and invisible organisms doing what they have been doing since the beginning of life on this planet, something will change in the way they see the world. This is what this technology does before it ever powers the street light. It changes what people think is possible. The soil is not dead, it is electric, and it has been waiting for you to notice it. If this has changed your understanding of what's growing under your feet, hit subscribe. I have many more videos like this coming up, and the next one goes even deeper. See you in the next one.